House Speaker Paul D. Ryan of Wisconsin outlined the tax plan in a meeting with conservative groups on Tuesday. Bill ClarkCQ Roll Call, via Associated Press, Washington. There is a math problem at the root of the Republican delay in introducing a sprawling tax bill, and it grows, in part, from President Trump's two non-negotiables on taxes. Mr. Trump has insisted on massive tax cuts, including reducing the top corporate tax rate to 20% from 35% and delivering a tax cut for the middle class. Both those goals have proven difficult for the Republicans crafting the House version of the tax bill, who are trying to offset revenues lost from those cuts, and finding political challenges at every turn. The president, for example, has resisted a push to reduce the cost of the corporate rate cut, which is estimated to reduce revenues by $2 trillion over a decade, by phasing it in over time. Rank-and-file Republicans in the House have pushed back against efforts to raise revenues by changing the tax treatment of retirement savings and limiting deductions for state and local taxes paid, the state income tax and the local property tax. It's essential that they remain, Representative Peter T. King, Republican of New York, said in a statement on Wednesday. So it's really a battle going on now. We are fighting, myself and others. And on Wednesday morning, business lobbyists began raising concerns that the bill now taking shape was seeking to offset individual tax cuts by increasing its taxation of multinational companies, possibly through a larger-than-expected tax on income earned outside the United States. A plan to nearly double the standard deduction for individuals and families, for example, is expected to cost $800 billion over a decade. The bill, which had been scheduled for release on Wednesday, was delayed until Thursday, as Republicans struggled with the daunting arithmetic of drastically cutting tax rates without alienating key constituencies by eliminating popular tax breaks. After a day of negotiations on Capitol Hill and confusion across Washington, the House's chief tax writer acknowledged the delay but vowed to stay on track with an ambitious plan to pass a bill through the chamber by Thanksgiving. In consultation with President Trump and our leadership team, we have decided to release the bill text on Thursday, the tax writer, Representative Kevin Brady, Republican of Texas and the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, said in a statement. We are pleased with the progress we are making, and we remain on schedule to take action and approve a bill at our committee beginning next week. Even if the delay does not throw the Republican schedule off course, it signals potential difficulties ahead for a bill that Republicans are attempting to pass on a party-line basis, over what appear most likely to be loud objections from some business groups, and relentless criticism from Democrats. When one party tries to rush through a bill of this significance that was drafted in secret without a single public hearing, you can expect outcomes like this, said Representative Richard E. Neal of Massachusetts, the top Democrat on the Ways and Means Committee. Republicans should slow down, work through the regular legislative order and do this right, not fast, as Republicans rushed to lock down support from their members and key interest groups earlier on Tuesday. Some new details of the bill began to trickle out. Speaker Paul D. Ryan, Republican of Wisconsin, told conservative groups on Tuesday afternoon that the draft bill would cut the top corporate tax rate to 20% immediately, and not phase it in over a period of years, as had been discussed, according to a meeting attendee. Mr. Ryan also said that the plan would include a higher rate for the wealthiest earners, which would be above the 35% that Republicans have identified as their top tax rate in the framework released in September. He did not indicate whether the wealthiest would continue to pay the current top rate of 39.6% or if it would be higher or lower. Attendees were also told by Mr. Ryan that Republicans would phase in a repeal of the estate tax over several years. The House bill will include a worldwide minimum tax on multinational corporations' profits, two people with knowledge of the drafting said, in an effort to prevent companies from shifting money abroad as the United States transitions to a so-called territorial tax system, which would subject only income earned domestically to the American corporate tax rate. The tax would be on all global income, and not on a country-by-country basis, as some companies had feared. Republican leaders also confirmed they would maintain a federal tax deduction for at least some state and local property taxes paid, while eliminating comparable deductions for income and sales taxes. Other issues remained in flux or unknown outside of a select group of lawmakers and congressional staff. Those include the size of an expanded child tax credit, whether to phase in or sunset some rate cuts, and the specifics of how the plan might affect tax-free retirement savings. Mr. Trump invited nearly 24 leaders of major business groups, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the American Petroleum Institute and the American Farm Bureau Federation, to the White House on Tuesday morning to discuss the bill. In the afternoon, Mr. Ryan met with Mr. Trump and then with more than a dozen conservative groups on the tax bill, including the Heritage Foundation and Americans for Prosperity. Each of those groups, and in many cases, individual companies, were being for how lawmakers change tax breaks large and small in their overhaul of the tax code. Business leaders, in particular, are ready to applaud or attack the bill depending on how those changes affect their bottom lines. We're trying to see, and evaluate with a calculator at the end of the day, are the incentives going to be right to help the economy to grow, said David Stevens, the president of the Mortgage Bankers Association, whose industry has much at stake in the rewrite of the tax code. A Halloween-themed news release from Mr. Ryan's office on Tuesday suggested that Republicans are prepared for many business groups to oppose the bill when it is released. The special interest ghouls will do anything to protect all the little tricks and treats, the release said. They will haunt the hallways and demonize our plan. They will conjure up new scare tactics and spread wicked tales. Party leaders are already struggling to kill off some tax breaks they had targeted for elimination. Republicans had proposed wiping out the entire deduction for state and local taxes, which is particularly valuable to high-tax states like New York, New Jersey and California. After running into resistance from lawmakers, Mr. Brady said over the weekend that the coming tax plan would include an itemized property tax deduction to help taxpayers with local tax burdens. In an interview on Tuesday with the radio host Hugh Hewitt, Mr. Brady said the tax bill would not include a deduction for state or local income taxes. Our lawmakers in those high-tax states really believe their families are being punished the most by property taxes, Mr. Brady said, adding that those taxes are not based on your ability to pay, they're just painful. Mr. Brady also signaled the deduction for property taxes could be limited. Asked if there would be no cap on that deduction, Mr. Brady responded, "To be determined." Representative Tom Reed, Republican of New York, and a member of the Ways and Means Committee, said on Tuesday it was clear that the original plan to eliminate the deduction for state and local taxes was not going to occur. "I think that shows a demonstration by our leadership and by the powers to be that we recognize that this issue needs to be resolved," Mr. Reed told reporters. He said that retaining a deduction for property taxes was gaining traction as we get to the finish line here. It did not appear on Tuesday that the compromise was sufficient to win over all the blue state House Republicans who had raised concerns. Democrats criticized the compromise. Go figure that high property tax states like Texas, Chairman Brady's state, would be better off under the proposal, said Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York and the minority leader. Picking winners and losers like this doesn't solve the problem. The new state and local compromise is still a nearly $1 trillion tax hike on the middle class to pay for tax giveaways to big corporations and the very wealthy. Mr. Trump pushed back on Democratic criticism in his meeting with business leaders. "The Democrats will say our tax bill is for the rich, but they know it's not," he said. He added, "The Democrats want to raise taxes and really create obstruction, and the Republicans want to lower taxes, and we want to get rid of regulations."